Hey guys, what is up? It's your girl Quinn here and I'm back with another video. Today I'm actually redoing one of my first videos that I did in the past, which was to assist blind and visually impaired persons who are new to their computer or new to this whole blindness thing in the first place, assist them with using and learning their keyboard. The last video that I did was just overall poor quality and the music was so loud. I decided that I'm gonna do it over because I think you guys deserve better. So if you know anyone who doesn't really know their keyboard well, or they are new to the blind community and they need some help with being able to navigate their keyboard with their screen reader, please recommend them to this video. But as per usual, before we get into it, please be sure to like the video if you love the content, subscribe if you're new, and turn on that notification bell to be alerted when I post new videos. Also, the instrumentals for this video have been provided by InnerSanctum Entertainment Ltd. But without further ado, let's get right into it. As you might have already known, NVDA allows us to use the keyboard to navigate on the computer just as good or even better than how a sighted person would do it. There is the mouse, but that option is not very accessible to us because we can't see the mouse pointer on the screen, so that is why it is essential for us to learn the keys on our keyboard. I've come across a lot of blind and visually impaired persons who take up to 2 minutes trying to find keys on their keyboard before. When I see this, I can't help but want to help them out. We need to be efficient on our keyboard and professional as well, and we need to show the world that our disability does not limit us. So for this tutorial, obviously we will be using NVDA. If you don't have it installed, I will provide a link down below in the description to where you can go and download it. So now that you have your computer up and NVDA installed, the first thing you would need to do is to get into input help mode. This is a feature that NVDA provides which allows us to be able to press keys on the keyboard and hear what they are. We can familiarize ourselves with these keys and we can do all of this without affecting the whole operation of the computer. Also, in input help mode, for some keystrokes and keys that NVDA provides, it will tell us what they do. Now, the keystroke to turn on input help mode is your NVDA key plus your number 1. My NVDA key in my case is my insert key, but it all depends on what you have your NVDA key set as.
Input help on.
If it's your first time on the keyboard, you can get a sighted person to press this key for you for now. And of course, the same keystroke will turn it back off when you are finished, so that you can use your computer normally. Now that it says input help on, we can press the keys on the keyboard without doing any damage to it at all. By the way, for this tutorial, I'll be using the standard Windows keyboard, which is highly recommended. But the keyboard that you have should not be very far off or hard to learn once you practice in input help mode. I personally am using a laptop, but I bought an external keyboard to work with it to work more efficiently because I can't really bother with the function keys on the laptop. Because if you didn't know, with a laptop, with the function keys, you have to be able to use the FN keys with the function keys and other keys to be able to get certain keystrokes done. And that's not really ideal for us. In my case, even one time I accidentally muted my computer and I didn't even know which key I pressed to mute it, and I had to get someone's help to put it back on because I could not hear my screen reader. If you're using the standard Windows keyboard like I am, your keyboard should have 5 sections and we'll be going through them one by one. Section 1. The first section is the very first line of keys at the top of your keyboard. If we go to the top of our keyboard and start from the extreme left and press that key, we should hear
Escape.
And if you would realize, this key is usually by itself on that line. And now if you move to the right of your escape key and press that one, you should hear
F1.
Alright, so now we have moved into the function keys, which range from 1 to 12. And you'd realize that the function keys are usually grouped into 3 groups of 4. I guess that this probably just makes it easier for us to find them. So now I'm going to continue to move to the right of the F1 key and press the rest of the keys until I get to F12.
F2. F3. F4. F5. F6. F7. F8. F9. F10. F11. F12.
And F12 should be your last function key. Next, to the right of the function keys, if you press the next key, you should hear
Print screen.
And this is a key that allows you to take a screenshot of your computer screen. Then, moving to the right again, you should hear
Scroll lock.
And the key to the right of your scroll lock would be
Pause.
And that should be the last key in the top line of your keyboard. And that is the end of section 1. Now let's move on to the next section. Section 2. Now, if you should move your finger back over to the print screen key, which would be the third key from the top right of your keyboard.
Print screen.
Then, if you move your fingers directly down, you should come across a group of 6 keys. If you have a standard Windows keyboard, you should have 3 keys at the top and 3 keys at the bottom. Some keyboards, on the other hand, have them layout as 3 on the right and 3 on the left. These keys in the 6-pack are actually your cursor control keys. They control the focus of your cursor. If you go to the top left key in the 6-pack, which in my case is the key right under the print screen, you would hear
NVDA.
This is actually the insert key, but because it is set as my NVDA key, it says NVDA. But if I should press it twice quickly,
Insert.
then if you go to the key directly below the insert key, you would hear
Delete.
Great. Now let us continue with the 6-pack and move over to the key to the right of the delete.
End.
So that is your end key. Now if you move to the key directly above the end key, you would hear
Home.
Awesome. Now let us move over to the last column of keys in the 6-pack. So to the right of the home key is
Page up.
and the key directly below it, and the last one in the 6-pack of keys is,
Page down.
and that is the end of the 6-pack of keys. And I don't know if you realized, but after you learn your keyboard and continue to watch the rest of my tutorials, you'll realize that all the keys in the top line of the 6-pack of keys, the key directly below them does the opposite of that key. So that is it for section 2. Now let's move on to the next section. Section 3. Keeping your fingers at the 6-pack of keys, move your finger back over to the delete. Then move your finger down. You might feel a blank space there, but continue to move your finger directly below the delete key until you get to another key. There you would come across a key sticking out all by itself. We have now arrived at our arrow keys. And you will learn that these keys are used to move your cursor around the screen. So if you press that key sticking out to itself, you should hear
Up arrow.
And if you press the key directly below it,
Down arrow.
great. Now there are buttons on either side of the down arrow. The one to the left of it is your,
Left arrow.
and if you go over to the one to the right of the down arrow,
Right arrow.
and that is it for your arrow keys, which ends section 3. Now let's move on to the next section. Section 4. Before we get over to the main keypad, there is also another section on your keyboard to the extreme right. This is your number pad. Now I want you to find this section and navigate to the key to the top left of it. This is your number lock. So let's press it.
Number lock off.
You would hear on or off depending on if your number lock was turned on or off before. This button toggles between the two states. So if I should press it again,
Number lock on.
now this is important to note. If you want to use this number pad regularly, like to perform calculations and such, please keep your number lock on. This is because when the number lock is off, NVIDIA actually uses the keys on the number pad to be able to carry out other interesting functions. And you will learn that later on. Or if you feel like exploring, you can turn the number lock off while in input help mode and press the different keys on it to hear what they will do. Now, moving on to the right of the number lock is the
Number lock plus numpad divide.
This is your division key. And to the right of that,
Number lock plus numpad multiply.
and to the right of that should be,
Number lock plus numpad minus.
and directly below your minus.
Number lock plus numpad plus.
Alright, so those are all your mathematical operators on the number pad. And directly below your plus should be your,
Numpad enter.
and this enter works just like the one that we will see on the main pad. Now move your fingers to the bottom edge of that enter key. Then let us move over to the left of that.
Numpad decimal.
So that is basically a full stop that you can use as your decimal point. And to the left of that,
Number lock numpad 0.
so we're getting to the actual numbers now. Before we go up to the other numbers, note that this numpad layout is not the same like on your TV remote or on your phones. Those go from 1 to 9, starting from the top left button going down to the bottom. But on the keyboard, it goes from 1 to 9, starting from the bottom left key going up to the top. So if you move your finger to the left edge of the numpad 0 and move your finger to the key to the top of that, you would hear,
Number lock numpad 1.
and to the right of that,
Number lock numpad 2.
and then moving again to the right,
Number lock numpad 3.
Alright, so we are finished with the bottom row of numbers. Now, if you move your finger back over to the numpad 1 and then move it to the key above that, you would hear
Number lock numpad 4.
And the key to the right of that is your
Number lock numpad 5.
And if you realize there's a little marker on the number 5, I don't know if you could feel it. This is a common feature on most TV remotes and phones as well. I guess this helps you to be able to find the rest of the numbers easily. Once you can find the 5 key, you can find all of them. And the last in this row to the right of the 5 is
Number lock numpad 6.
Now bring your finger back over to the numpad 4. Then move your finger to the key on top of that and you should hear
Number lock numpad 7.
Then to the right of that
Number lock numpad 8.
And lastly, to the right of that
Number lock numpad 9.
And that is it for the number pad and the end of section 4. Now let's move on to the last and main section of the keyboard. Section 5. Now we're at the biggest and most used section of the keyboard. This section is your alphanumeric pad. This part of your keyboard consists of letters, numbers, symbols, and some other important keys. And if you would realize, this section is the main section of your keyboard because it takes up the most space. So what I want you to do now is to navigate to the key to the bottom left of your keyboard. If you press this key, you should hear
Left control.
So this is your control key. The reason it says left is because there's another control key to the right as well. This is the same with all the other keys that will say left or right. That means that they have another one on the opposite side of the main keypad. But whether it be the left or the right of that key, it's the same function. Then moving to the key directly above the left control.
Left shift.
Then directly above that.
Caps lock.
Moving above the caps lock.
Tab.
And above the tab, making sure to stay on the left edge of the key.
Grav.
And that should be the key on the top left edge of your main pad. And if you're wondering what's on that key, I think your tilde should be on that key as well. It is located directly below the escape key. And if we should move to the right of it,
1.
So we are now on to the number section of this main pad. On the top line which we are on now, moving from left to right is a line of numbers ranging from 1 to 0. So if I should continue moving to the right,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0.
Great, so those are all the numbers in the top line of the main keypad. Now if you move to the right of the 0,
Dash.
And that is your hyphen, and I guess it could be used as your minus key as well. But if we move to the right of that,
Equals.
And to the right of that, which should be the last key in this line and the key to the top right of the main pad.
Backspace.
Then below that is your
Backslash.
Then below that is your
Enter.
And I don't know if you realize, but your enter key is directly in line with your caps lock key. Vertically speaking, these keys are directly in the middle of this main pad. Later on, you will see that they are on the same line of the home keys as well. Then below the enter is your
Right shift.
And below that is
Right control.
And now we are back to the bottom of your main keypad, but to the right this time. Now let's move to the left of the right control.
Applications.
Now this key, as you will learn later, is the key that we'll use to replace the right mouse click, since we can't use the mouse. Now to the left of it is your My key doesn't say anything, but I was told that FN was written on my key on my keyboard. But what I realized while using another standard Windows keyboard was that key was actually the right Windows key. So it depends on the keyboard that you're using what that key might say. Let's move to the left of that.
Right Alt.
And to the left of that should be your space bar.
Space.
Moving to the left again.
Left Alt.
And then to the left again.
Left Windows.
And if we go to the left of your left Windows, we'll be right back at the
Left Control.
Alright, so now we have explored all the keys on the borders of our main pad. Now let's get into the meat of the matter, which is our letters. Alright, so now I need you to follow me closely. So right now you should be in the third row of keys from the bottom of your keyboard. And as I said before, this is the line in the middle of the main pad which has your home keys. Now use your index fingers to find the two keys on this line which has markers on them. This marker should be similar to the one that you felt on the numpad 5 earlier on. Once you have found those two keys, your left index finger should be on the
F.
And your right index finger should be on the
J.
Now these are the home keys for your index fingers. All the fingers on your hands have a set key that they should be positioned on for most of the time while you are typing. This is to help you to find all the other letters and keys easily, as each key is assigned to a specific finger. So when one of your fingers move off of its home key to another key, it should then return back to the home key after you press that key. So let us start with the right hand. Remember that your right index finger should be on the
J.
And now we're going to place our right, middle, ring, and pinky finger to the keys to the right of the J respectively. So your middle finger should be on the
K.
Your right ring finger should be on the
L.
And your right pinky.
Semi.
So those are the home keys for your right hand. Now to the left hand. Remember that your left index finger should be on the
F.
And now we're going to place our left, middle, ring, and pinky fingers to the keys on the left of the F respectively. So your left middle finger should be on
D.
Your left ring finger
S.
And your left pinky
A.
And those are the home keys for your left hand. But lastly, you must be wondering where you put your thumbs. Well, your thumbs belong on the space bar. So this is the position where all your fingers should be on when you're preparing to type and for most of the time while you're typing. So let's move from left to right, starting with the left hand.
A. S. D. F.
Then, still moving from left to right, the right hand.
J. K. L. Semi.
And remember that your thumbs should be on the space bar. And of course, you'd have to move a hand or so when reaching for the number pad or the arrow keys or the 6-pack or the function keys. Now let's see what other keys are assigned to each finger. Please keep your fingers on the home keys as we go through. Let's start with your right hand. If you move your right index finger directly upwards from the J, you would hear
U.
Keeping it on the U and moving it to the left.
Y.
And directly below the Y.
H.
And the H is to the left of the J, because if you should move your index finger to the right of the H.
J.
Alright, so we're back to the home key for the right index finger. Now you're going to move it below the J slightly towards the right.
M.
And to the left of the M.
N.
And to the left of the N.
B.
Now return your right index finger to the J, which is its home key.
J.
And those are all the keys that your right index finger is assigned to. Now let's move to the right middle finger, which should be on the
K.
If you move it directly up from the K.
I.
And move it back down to the K. Then we're going to move it below the K, veering slightly to the right.
Comma.
And return it to the K. So those are the keys for the right middle finger. Now to the right ring finger, which should be on the
L.
If you move it directly upwards from the L.
O.
Now return it to the L. And if you should move it below the L slightly to the right.
Dot.
And that is your full stop. Remember to move your finger back to the home key, which is the L. Now on to the last finger for the right hand, which is the pinky. Your pinky should be on the
Semi.
Now move it directly up from the semicolon.
P.
Now move your right pinky to the right of the P.
Left bracket.
And to the right of that.
Right bracket.
So those would be your square brackets. Below the right bracket should be
Enter.
And to the left of the enter.
Tick.
So that is your apostrophe, which is right to the right of your
Semi.
And we are back to the home key for the pinky. And if you should move the right pinky below the semi but a little to the right.
Slash.
And of course, to the right of that is your
Right shift.
And remember to return your pinky to its home key. And that is it for the right hand. Now let's move over to the left hand. Remember that your left index finger should be on the
F.
And if you move it directly above the F.
R.
Now move it to the right of the R.
T.
And below the T.
G.
Now return your left index finger to its home key, which is the F, which should be to the left of the G.
F.
Now if you move it below the F a little to the right, you would hear
V.
Then to the left of the V.
C.
And that is it for the left index finger. Now move your finger back up to the F, which is its home key. Now on to the left middle finger, which should be on the
D.
If you move it directly up from the D.
E.
Move it back down to the D. Now move it below the D slightly to the left.
X.
And that is it for the left middle finger. And please remember to return it back to the home key, which is the D. Now let's move to the left ring finger, which should be on the
S.
If you move directly up from the S.
W.
Now return it to the S. And then moving down from the S a little to the left, you would hear
Z.
Now return it to the S. And that is it for the left ring finger. Now let's move on to the last finger, which is our left pinky, which should be on the
A.
Move it up from the A.
Q.
And to the left of the Q is your
Tab.
And under the tab,
Caps lock.
now return it to the A, which is to the right of the caps lock.
A.
Personally, I prefer to use my pinky to access the letter Z. If you should move your pinky from the A down below it slightly to the right,
Z.
there it is. I think it's easier, but to each his own. And lastly, to the left of the Z,
Left shift.
and that is it, guys, for our main pad and for our keyboard in general. Remember that this is the standard for using your keyboard with some slight adjustments on my side. But feel free to change it up a little to where you are more comfortable and to where you can work more efficiently. Also note that some of these keys that we just went through have other symbols on them as well. These keys that have other symbols on them are as follows: the grav, the numbers on the top line of the main pad, the dash, the equals, the left and right bracket, backslash, the semi, the tick, the full stop, and the comma. You can access those by pressing one of those keys that I just listed above along with one of the shift keys. So you'd press them both at the same time. You can open a Word file or notepad and press these to be able to familiarize yourselves with them and learn where each symbol is located. Lastly, a trick that I always use to get to the backspace quickly is by moving my right hand to the top left of the 6-pack and moving to the key to the left of that. Then, after moving any of your hands off of your home keys, you can always find back your home keys by looking for the marker within that line. So now that I have showed you around your keyboard, you can now go into input help mode and familiarize yourself with them. Then, after you feel comfortable enough, you can always go into Microsoft Word or Notepad and practice typing actual words or sentences. But that is it for this video, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you didn't really catch on within this video, you can always play it over and go back through. But I'm just happy to be able to teach you about where you can actually find all the keys on your keyboard, and hopefully you will go ahead from here on out and practice and start typing. So go ahead, learn your keyboard, like the video if you love the content, and subscribe if you're new and for more awesome videos. I have so much more helpful tutorials on my channel. You can go ahead and check them out. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.